What's up, guys? Welcome back to Storytime with Uncle John, where you get to watch a fat guy with a beard tell you some stories and run his mouth in between. Today's stories come from the subreddit of Tales from Tech Support. I'm going to do it a little bit different today. It's going to be a little bit longer video because at the end we've got a two-part huge story. So I don't know what it's about, but I do know that it's long. So buckle up, sit down, grab your favorite adult beverage, and let's enjoy. I'm not an idiot, and I don't need to be treated like one. I have a customer that's about an hour away from us. They're a small office of 3 to 4 people, not much equipment there, a switch, a firewall, and AP. One day the battery backup died and everything went down. I was texting with the user trying to figure out what was happening. They have a power strip that was plugged into the battery that was housing most of the plugs. I eventually asked her to bypass the battery and just plug the strip into the wall. Still wouldn't work. Asked to send me a picture of everything. The next part is the actual exchange we had. Me. It could take a minute for the network to come back up. Are there lights on the equipment? The employee sends a picture of the equipment. What equipment? No lights on anything. Nothing's working. Then I say, well, it looks like the power strip is plugged into itself. Make sure it's plugged into the wall outlet. The employee says, okay, I'm not an idiot and I don't need to be treated like one. The strip is plugged into an extension cord that's plugged into the wall so it can reach. Everything worked yesterday, including the strip, so it's not plugged into itself. It's plugged in where it's always been plugged in. Where probably you guys plugged it into. I said, well, I'm certainly not treating you like an idiot. From the picture, it just looked like it was. Are your monitors plugged into the power strip? Wondering if that thing is dead. After a few more fruitless back and forths, I decided to drive an hour out there and take a look. I needed to get a new battery out there anyway. I was there for a whole 30 seconds before discovering that it was indeed plugged into itself. They were down for a couple hours when it was avoidable simply by taking the time to actually look at what they had done. I told her that it was plugged into itself and she literally said, oh, and nothing else. On the bright side, I haven't heard from her since then and it's been over a year now. I love it when you make a simple correction and people think you're speaking to them like they're an idiot. Just like me, even when I think somebody's being an idiot, I don't usually treat them that way until they start getting snarky like this. Then all bets are off. Now I'm going to talk to you like you're an infant, a child, whatever. Just be reasonable, do what the tech asks, and all will be well with the world. Oh yeah, Nickel was hanging out on the chair. I don't know if you noticed that. He's still mad because I've got his chair. Oh well. The dumpster fire of a Teams meeting. This is just a couple years ago. I work with the help desk team currently, but have a lot of experience in team leadership, administration, information security, development, and project management. So I'm normally a liaison between the help desk and other teams, providing advice and guidance. This is for a large fulfillment and logistics company. A project comes in which is to build a brand new centralized reporting tool. This is to replace the loads of Power BI, Excel and Access DBs that exist on the network that use ODBC connections to connect to SQL databases. There is no standard at this time. The database team has built out databases that are replicated from the production databases called reporting databases. No applications depend on these reporting databases, and there isn't much of a delay between the two. The problem begins when end users that work on the warehouse floor ask developers for the password to the production databases to do this reporting in Excel. The devs think nothing of it. The problem is the account has administrative privileges, so it could be both read and write data. And now a regular Joe with a handheld scanner picking clothes for an order has God rights to these databases. Then their management creates a spreadsheet that lists all of the passwords in plain text in SharePoint. Then they build these Excel reports that query every 5 minutes on multiple machines across the enterprise. This cripples the databases. So they want this centralized reporting tool. Now, I'm aware of the use of these accounts. I spoke with the database team and they thanked me for telling them. They didn't know the full extent of the problem and neither did I at the time. They encouraged me and the rest of the help desk team to push users into running queries against the reporting databases. This, however, was difficult to enforce. Okay, now you have the background. Here's the dumpster fire. The meeting begins. The project management team, reporting team, the fulfillment teams, help desk team, and database team. One of the heads of fulfillment shares screen and begins talking about these reports. The screen share shows some of the queries and it immediately pulls the attention of the database team. Why the production databases? How did you get access? What accounts are you using? Then here comes the flames. Oh, okay, the first one was the dumpster, now here comes the fire. The moment that team realized that everyone knew the administrator passwords, the inferno began. Everyone sat quiet while the database manager was berating the fulfillment teams. My manager and I are both having a good chuckle to the side. I step away to straight up pop popcorn. I come back to the meeting. This guy is seething. He's asking questions such as, how did you get these accounts? Who approved this? These passwords are in plain text for all to see? You mean to tell me anyone can just drop a table? Information security teams gets pulled into the call. The fulfillment team managers and leads were stuttering as they couldn't begin to answer the questions. This manager was on a rampage. I could hear the veins popping in his forehead through his voice, accusing his team of causing a potential security breach. He accused them of causing all of the outages such as application slowness, random disconnects, and data completely missing. That they were either doing this deliberately or accidentally out of ignorance. After he was done, you could hear a pin drop. His last words, "I'm revoking all access. This project is dead." He then disconnected and took a week-long leave. Just typing this out has got me hyped up again. I can understand where sometimes, communication between teams can be a little bit sketchy, sparse, whatever, or complicated. And, for ease of getting things done and just getting back to work, I can see where somebody would say, you know what, just let them have access. That way they can get their stuff done. But you got people with malicious intent, whether they're on their way out the door, they don't like their working environment. They're just looking for a way to screw things up for the company. Then you have people that are just too dumb to know anything and be on any kind of electronic device. And then they start fiddling with things thinking that they're doing a good job. And then they just crash the system. At no point should everybody in the company have access to administrative passwords. Never. I'm sorry, are you a technician or not? Nothing annoys me more than people who are rude to you when you're there to help them. Well, except for people who are rude to you when you're there to help them, and the problem is completely their own ineptitude and lack of common sense. Today we got a message from a user saying Outlook wouldn't open. I remote on and I can see Outlook open on the taskbar. I changed monitors and on the third screen I can see Outlook prompting to select a profile. I assumed she just wasn't sure what to do here, so I chose the default profile and set it to always use this one to avoid the pop-up from happening again. I briefly explained the issue to the user, but she insists it still isn't opening and gives a fairly snotty response saying she's been unable to work since 2 p.m. It's 2:45 at this point. I tell her I had it open before I left, but I can connect again to check. I connect and it's sat right there, as open as an Outlook application can possibly be. I ask her how many screens she uses. 3 is the answer. I tell her that it is open on one of those screens and ask if there's another problem. She says no. I then say sorry, I don't know what the problem is. I then get the response, sorry, are you a technician or not? This royally pissed me off. I connect again, screenshot the window showing Outlook is open and send it to the user. She insists she can't see it. I go to the display settings and show her that it's on screen 3. She says it isn't showing anything on that screen. I ask her if she can see the notepad I've opened on the screen. She says no. I ask her if the monitor's connected and she says yes. I ask her if it's turned on. She says no. I ask her to turn it on. She does and says she can see Outlook now. The effing audacity of some people to be rude to and criticize people for helping when they lack the basic brainpower to do such rudimentary tasks astounds me. She's now my second least favorite user. Edit. The first spot for least favorite user was a similar story, except the issue was with a third-party mail provider. And when I tried to explain that it's not something we can help with, he used the phrase, "Do you not know what you're doing?" That level of rudeness is hard to beat, though I've had some close ones. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and say all techs are perfect and everything and they always have the answer, but when they're there to try to help and troubleshoot and things like that, the last thing you want to do is start being snotty with them, because at that point, even if they're not somebody who can actually resolve the issue, they're there to help. And if they can't resolve it, they will push it off to somebody that can, or ask questions of somebody and get the answer for you. It's just a bad idea. Just like at a restaurant, when the wait staff pisses me off, or something's not cooked right, I'm not going to sit there and berate them and then expect them to bring me my food again if I've sent it back, which I rarely do. But anyway, because that's just asking for somebody to do something really, really nasty to your food. So, while you may be right, you're still going to lose. That's just one of the basic rules of life, even if you're right, you're wrong. So, yeah. We don't need no stinking version numbers. Part 1. This is the long part, guys. Back in the mid-1990s, I was a programmer for a financial services company. We had a flagship product that provided workflow management for our clients. Letters. Real letters, written by real people on real pieces of paper, would be opened by the mailroom staff, scanned, indexed, name, account number, etc., and then the system would queue the task up to be handled by the processing staff. The processing staff would read the letter and then invoke one or more auxiliary applications to fulfill the request, such as initiating the buy or sell orders, updating account information such as address changes. The last step in the process was to send out a confirmation letter indicating that the request had been completed or to ask for more information. I had just led a project wherein I had redesigned the letter writing program, making it capable of interfacing with a different mainframe ecosystem for different financial industries, and the team had moved on to work on the next big thing. Our redesigned application was very successful and our clients were really happy with the new application. As the rollout was nearing completion and support calls were diminishing, my boss was approached by his boss with a pretty serious problem. The development team on our flagship product was starting to lose credibility. The development team had been working on version 2.0, and they were perpetually just about ready to release it any day now, maybe 2 weeks, 4 weeks tops. Sadly, that had been the status for about 2 years. Bugs that cropped up in version 1 were simply added to the equivalent of a backlog, which was essentially a document that had a growing list of the issues. The development team had to be entirely focused on developing version 2 and couldn't be spared to address any of the bugs in version 1 that were starting to hamper our clients' workflows. Remember, version 2.0 was just a few days away from being done, maybe 2 weeks, 4 weeks if they run into any issues. Occasionally an issue would be so critical that one of the devs was sidejacked to fix the issue and to send out the updated .exe and DLL file to the client. Not clients, just the one client who was being affected by that particular issue. Side note, my boss had a list of observations called Things That Just Are, and the situation with our flagship product caused this addition to that list. You cannot do new development and product support development with the same team at the same time. Managing this DLL hell was insane since every client was essentially running their own custom application. To try to tame this unwieldy beast, I was asked to prioritize the backlog and start fixing the bugs. At the time, I only had a passing familiarity with the flagship product. I knew what it did and how it did it, but up to that time I had been working on the auxiliary application. I didn't have a lot of hands-on experience with the big beast. I had developed a good relationship with the technical administrator for one of our clients who was just down the street, so I went over to get a fresh look at their operation and the problems they were having. So I show up and he was going over some of the issues when he got a call from the floor. My application just died and there's a weird message on the screen. His response was, "Don't touch it, we're going to come take a look." So we head over to the person's desk and I sit down and take over the mouse. I made a note of the error message, closed the dialog and started poking around, muttering to myself as I poked. A help menu in the menu bar. Let's see, is there an about option? What about the settings? Where do they hide the version number? Being unsuccessful in finding the version number, I finally resorted to going to the application directory and got a listing of the .exe and .ll files. At least that way I would know the relative vintage of the software. Once I had my listing, I restarted the application so the workers could get back to processing our queue. Of course, the problem didn't happen while I was standing there. Eventually, I left to go back to my office, determined to find out what was wrong with the software, what needed to be fixed, and, oh by the way, where do we hide the darn version number? Little did I know that I was about to descend into a world driven by logic that almost makes the claims made by sovereign citizens sound sane. We don't need no stinking version numbers, Part 2. Recap. I took over support for an application that had not been regularly supported for about 2 years. One of the first things I ran into was that the application didn't display its version number anywhere. Thinking this would be an easy thing to resolve, I found out it was anything but easy. I talked to my boss about adding the version number to the help menu. He thought it was a wonderful idea, and I was happy I had a very simple improvement to the code base to start out my newly assigned support position for our software. Within a few minutes, I had compiled the program and tested it. The functionality worked great and the version number was easy to find. I had a question about the software repository and had to go ask one of the developers for the flagship product. Big mistake. I explained what I had done with the version number and he immediately told me I wasn't allowed to do that. Not shouldn't do it or that it wasn't a good idea, but we have orders why we can't display the version number. Orders? Like from management? The developer called over the team lead and told him about the grievous sin I had just committed. Actually, since I had a question about the repo, I hadn't actually committed the source file yet. But, semantics. The team leader scowled and reiterated, absolutely not. I asked why, but was told to stop meddling and go back and do my job. Something in his tone of voice indicated that I was almost persona non grata with that team. there was a real hostility towards me, more than just a developer from one group digging through another group's code. I would later find out that the entire team had been somewhat embarrassed that they hadn't been able to get version 2.0 out the door for so long, and they were ticked off that I had been tasked with cleaning up their mess. I walked back to my desk and stopped by my boss's office to talk to him about the issue, but he was on the phone. When I opened up my email, I found 2 emails from 2 different clients, each reporting a new problem with the flagship product. I immediately replied to the technical admin for those clients that I needed the version number, file, date, timestamp from the application directory for the .exe and .ll files. I had to explain how to open the command prompt, how to change directories to the desired directory, and how to get a file listing into a text file with a reminder to send me the resulting text file. And then I made a note to check back with the tech admins in 2 or 3 days to see if they had gotten around to getting that information for me. I had no sooner sent the responses when my boss called me into his office. "Bob Arg," he said, "I just got off the phone with so-and-so. I hate to say this, but you're not allowed to update the code to display the version number. However, I've never heard anything so ridiculous, so I'm going to investigate a little more. For now, just sit tight and do what you can for the bugs." It took him about 4 days to finally get back to me. He had the temerity to go up the chain. I have to admit right here that he was probably the best programmer/manager I've ever had the pleasure to work under, and he found out the ugly truth. Someone about 2 or 3 layers up in upper management felt that having a version number in the software was an indicator to the world that the software had bugs. I stared at him as if he had bugs crawling out of his ears. I took a deep breath to gather my thoughts. So we can't show the version number because people will think that our software isn't perfect? Let's look at that. The end user at the client offices know that our software crashes during the day, and they raise it with their tech admin and their client reps. Our clients know our software has bugs because the tech admins and client reps have written several nasty emails to their management and our account folks, raising the level of awareness that the bugs in our software are starting to affect their work. Our account folks have escalated the issues to upper management. Our management knows our software has bugs because that's the very reason I was assigned to fix this crap, right? So by prohibiting the version number from being shown, the only folks it's being hidden from is from your support team. You know, the only people in the company who are responsible for triaging the issue with the client and finding the solution. Do I have that correct? He asked me to write it all up in an email and vowed to fight the good fight. The good news is that once we had pointed out the fallacies with the underlying logic, and by showing that it was literally slowing down our ability to respond with actual code fixes in a timely fashion, because we had to wait for the client to get around to sending us the file listings, we were finally allowed to display the version number in the software. The bad news is that it took my boss 3 weeks to convince the powers that be that this was a good thing and would instill confidence in our clients. How would it instill confidence? Because I had pointed out everybody who touched our software knew it had bugs, but now they could look and see that version 1.23.4 had several repeatable issues, and now we were on 1.45.7, and those problems were no longer occurring. And hey look, version 1.50.2 is really solid. So finally it all ended wonderfully. My developer and I killed all the bugs and did the bug stomp boogie, and even made a simple improvement that led to a 20 to 30% increase in productivity and workflow efficiency. We regained the confidence of our clients. Version 2.0 got released about 6 months later, and surprise, surprise, in one of the top navigation menu options there was the version number for all to see. As many game developers have learned over the last couple years, it's a really bad idea to hide things from end users and other techs who are trying to help work on your software. I don't know the particular ins and outs, but I know there's been a lot of game drama going on in the industry, and people who are promising games to be developed and developers that are either way behind or never even started, and they've, it's coming out any day now, and they don't even have demo programs going, nothing, so that it can be tested and worked through and reworked and whatever. So I can understand where, one department would be leery of letting another department go through their stuff. But at this point, if you've screwed things up for this long, then, the higher ups should have right then and there just said, stop. We're going to bring in another team to work alongside you guys. They'll work on getting the back stuff fixed, concentrate on getting, version 2.0 out, whatever. I don't know, but people are crazy. What can I tell you? And very territorial. So, all right, guys, hope you enjoyed today's stories. And if you did, do me a favor, click like, share, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And till the next one, we'll see you.